Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's Natalie from Creative Makers, and happy Memorial Day. I am happy if you are able to sit here with us, and if you're seeing this in replay later, yay. I've got a super special treat today, which I'm very excited about. I can't even believe I get to sit here. I'm going to be talking to Larry White. This is Larry. Hi, Larry.
Hello, everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thanks for letting me come over.
Yeah.
So Larry was the assistant for 30 years to Sam Maloof. Sam Maloof was an incredible forward-thinking woodworker. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, I think so. I call him a full spectrum human.
A full spectrum human.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to think about it. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into anything else that I think right now. I'm just going to start with the one question that I ask everybody, and then we just sort of take off from there.
Okay.
Okay, it's easy. Tell me what your creative life looked like as a kid. How did it start?
Okay, there's a good story about that.
Oh, let's hear it. I want to hear a good story.
When I was 6 years old, they thought I had rheumatic fever. And so I had to stay in bed for a whole year. And so I had a home teacher that came twice a week. And all I did was read little golden books and that kind of stuff. You know,
what are little golden books?
Little golden books were a series of small books made for children, discussing all kinds of stories and topics with a message in there, you know. And so I would read those. I don't remember much else going on, but I had a really fine teacher, and she showed up one day with a bag of clay. And so she showed me how to use it, how to work it. And so I made some animals. I made a rabbit, and it was a terracotta, a low-fire terracotta. And so I made a rabbit, and I made a couple of other small animals, and then she took them away to have them fired, and it took forever to get them back, and so I was nagging her every week about when I was going to get them. So eventually she got them fired and put them in the school talent show, the elementary school.
Yeah.
So I won first place with my rabbit. So that was my first real experience.
And tell me again how old you were?
6.
6. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was 6. So, and then that was that. Then I started school the next year in 2nd grade, and I was totally traumatized for the next 3 years.
Why?
And just because of my personality and getting back into school.
Were you a quiet, introverted kid?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I was not there.
Gotcha.
And so
that was overwhelmed.
Yeah. And so I think it was when I was 11. 11 would be 5th grade, I think.
Yeah, that's about
the
right.
music teacher from Lina Dinks Junior High School started making his rounds and brought instruments, and so I had already studied a little piano as a kid, and I started playing clarinet, and I immediately changed to saxophone. And so by the time I was 12, I was buying 45, or having my folks 45 records, and I would play them and then memorize the sax solos on them, like Tequila and Skokin, all those things in the 50s.
Yeah.
I memorized all those solos on the alto sax just by playing it and then playing it, playing the record, listening, then playing it.
Developing your ear.
I taught myself how to play those solos that way. And so let's just say I had a lot of natural talent in music.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 14, in 8th grade in junior high school, I got my first gig. I joined a band that was actually a high school band. And this is not a rock band. This is a small combo, they call them, that played swing music.
I was just going to say swing.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Standard
Which makes sense,
swing music.
And there'd be a lot of sax and swing music.
Yeah. And so I joined this group and just hit the ground running. And my first gig with that group was playing for my own junior high graduation dance. And so that was really nuts.
That is crazy, but that makes complete sense that there's some sort of parallel. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anyway, the reason I got into sax music so much was I dug into the closet. My folks had a stash of 78 records, and they had a lot of swing music. And one of them was a guy named Earl Bostic, who played with the big band. So I asked my music teacher at Bina Danks, I said, do you know who Earl Bostic is? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, that's the kind of music I want to play. And he says, oh, well, then you want to play jazz. And I went, what's that? And so he told me what it was, about what it was. And then he gave me names of people to look up and listen to. And so that started the whole music track. And so for the next 7 years, that's how I made my living, is playing music a couple of times a month for all kinds of teen proms, high school proms and business, the local dentist association have a dance party or something. So it was that kind of music. It wasn't rock and roll. But two of the guys in the group also liked jazz, and so we would get together on the side and try to learn to play that, but
jazz is a whole different beast.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing.
A whole different animal.
So anyway, that was my creative energies went into music for all those years.
Now, while you were doing all the music stuff, were you still paying a little attention to art?
No.
No, it was just all by the wayside.
No experience at all.
Wow.
Well, I will say, when I was a senior, something clicked in my head, and I remember the clay experience from when I was a kid.
From when you were 6, yeah.
And so I knew there was an art supply store in Claremont, California, and so I drove over there and tracked them down, and I bought a couple of bags of clay. But I was so naive, I had forgotten that you have to fire it. I didn't know that.
Right, it
anything
doesn't
about
just
it.
get
It's
hard.
just like,
yeah.
So one of the bags, I just opened it up and set it out and let it dry solid, hard. And then the other one, the other clay, I started making things out of it, and really having a good time. I really liked that. Really clicked with it. And the one that I let harden, I chiseled it with my little wood chisel set, then sculpted it like a piece of stone or wood or something, and created this form. Still not knowing that it had to be fired or anything, I
was going to say, because that clay wasn't prepared at all. If you had fired it, it probably would have exploded.
Oh, it would have. It would have. Yeah, it would have. And so it wasn't long after that, when I graduated from high school, that I was looking in the catalog at Chaffey College, and I just stumbled on the art section. I wasn't looking for that, but I just opened it up, and there was one of my friends from high school who was also a musician, and I had a picture of him throwing a pot in ceramics. And I looked at that, and I went, if he can do that, I can do that. And so I went to my counselor, and that was the beginning of my art career right there. He wouldn't let me take it because I was a pre-med student. But the next semester, I rolled in a ceramics class.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Yeah. You were a pre-med student?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Because I worked in after school, my junior and senior year in high school, I worked in a medical lab as an assistant.
Yeah.
Doing all the pickups and deliveries and cleaning test tubes, and we call it doing the dishes.
Yeah.
And learning a lot about medical technology.
And it piqued an interest?
Yeah. I inherited that job from my sister, who was a nursing student. She'd been working there. So when she went off to UCLA, then I inherited the job, and it was cool. It was totally cool. And so that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But that first semester, when he wouldn't let me take clay, I was loaded with so many units, I just crashed. It was just like, chemistry, physics,
it's a heavy
political
schedule.
science, everything. And I'm not that kind of academic student. I got good grades in high school, but it's not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's a whole other world. My brother, who was younger, my sister, both had doctorates, and my sister had 2 master's degrees, and she wound up being a psychiatrist. And, so it's not like I'm a dumb guy. It's just I'm not interested in academics.
Yeah, it's just not the same. Yeah. You've got a whole different thing going on. So, I mean, just like that. Goodbye, medical.
Yeah, it
hello,
was
art.
And I took the ceramics class, and there was no more world. Clay was my world, and I just spent all my time. I became the technician in the clay, started taking drawing, painting, other disciplines, And the next year, I was still playing music at that time.
Supporting yourself that way?
So that next summer, I got a gig with two of my friends, in a piano bar down in Ontario. And it was a piano. I played sax and vibes by then, and a drummer. So we played all summer. And in a piano bar, you know, the drunks are like 6 feet away from you. And
as a musician, I know.
So by the end of summer, my friends had gone back to school, and a couple of union guys had come in to take their place. And I was 18 and non-union, and so that they weren't happy with me.
Oh.
Big time not happy.
Yeah.
So it was miserable. It was terrible. So the end of the summer.
Why didn't you join the union?
Actually, because I didn't like him.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was unfair on so many levels. I don't want to get into that.
Okay,
politics.
we don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't.
But anyway, at the end of summer,
I didn't know it was going to be loaded.
Yeah, at the end of summer, I was wanting to, you know, I realized I was not going to be John Coltrane. I got it, and I looked at the life, and this is 1960. You know, it's like the life of a musician in 1960 is not like it is now.
I'm not sure it's any better now, quite honestly.
But anyway.
But at least there was lots of places playing live music at that point, you know, as opposed to now where a DJ comes in and does a lot of stuff. I'm stopping here because I have to leave soon, but I wanted to tune in while she could. This is Georgia. We've got 3 people watching right now. Here we go. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I just I saw that there was that question, and I just wanted to pipe in. Okay.
So I don't want to go too much further with that.
That's fine.
But it's important because it was a transition period.
Yeah.
And I just quit in end of September. I'd had it.
That's it. No more music.
No more music. And I packed the horn up, and I didn't play it again. I dug it out when I moved to Santa Cruz and just messed around a little bit, but it wasn't fulfilling. And I eventually sold it to pay the rent. And so, but anyway, I quit that summer, and I was talking with one of my close friends, and I said, I just feel like I want to get the hell out of here. Everything is just not right, you know? And he said, well, I've been feeling the same way. Let's go to Nebraska to my grandfather's ranch. He's got a ranch on the Platte River.
Nebraska.
And he works he takes care of the canal, the ditch bank, through all the irrigation and stuff. And stupid kid, I go, oh, okay, that sounds great.
That sounds great, yeah, adventure.
And I had some money saved up from the summer, and so I just told my dad, see ya, I'm going to Nebraska. And he was like, what? Anyway, so we jumped in his car and headed for Nebraska, not realizing that we were heading through Colorado in winter.
Oh.
So we drove back through blizzards all the way to Nebraska.
Oh my God.
And then I spent the next 4 months feeding cattle and in the total middle of winter in Nebraska, which absolutely was amazing. I loved every minute of it.
Really? Because you're a Southern California kid,
yeah, I grew up
right
here.
So,
yeah,
I mean, this is not a usual
No, this
adventure.
is all new stuff. And it was not only just a new physical experience, but it was a new cultural experience. Moving to a small town in Nebraska, they're out on the ranch, but you're looking at a town that has 1 or 2 streets. Everybody knows everybody, and if you're from California, you're a freak, you know. And that's just the way it was.
Yeah, I think that probably still happens.
But I really enjoyed, when I wasn't working, walking out through the Platte River, through the wilderness, which was right there. They lived right on it, and seeing all the animals and stuff. And it was a great experience, a very clarifying experience mentally for me, you know. And so my friend had a really serious relationship with his girlfriend, and so after 4 months, he was getting like 2 letters a day, and he was freaking out and wanting to go back to California. And it was his family and his car, so I had to come back. I wasn't ready, but I came back, and I enrolled in art classes that semester. And the end of that semester in June is when Sam called the school and asked for me. And he'd gotten my name.
Specifically?
Pardon?
For you specifically.
Yeah, and I didn't know that for 50 years. I thought it was just through the placement office because she knew who he was. But I found out after 50 years, Tony Ivins, my ceramics instructor, was at one of my openings in Claremont and told me that Sam had called Tony and asked if he knew of anybody in the art department that was together enough to come and work for him. And Tony had given him my name.
Isn't that wild?
I didn't know that for all those years.
So, I mean, as a kid, though, you were just like, this came out of the blue. You didn't know that there was any connection.
There's another funny little part to that story. I have what I call radar. It's like I know things ahead. And I don't know how that works. I don't know anything about it. It's just that it works. And so this woman had given me a slip to go down to Ontario to Pep Boys to get a job at Pep Boys as a stock kid. And so I drove all the way down to Ontario, which was, 12 miles, 15 miles.
Yeah.
And it was Euclid Avenue, which is a double lane road. And so I turned across and there was a red light, and I was sitting at the red light looking over at Pep Boys. And when I grew up, my dad, the cars we grew up with were 2 junk cars that my dad welded together and made a car. And that's what we had when I was a little kid. That's what we drove around in. And many, many nights, I as a kid was out there with a light under the car, holding him, freezing my butt off. I hated cars. I hate everything about them. So here I was sitting there contemplating working for Pep Boys.
Yeah.
And I literally just had a moment. And I went, what the hell am I doing? And the light turned green. I turned and drove by Pep Boys, drove all the way back to college, and I apologized to her. I said, somebody will want this job, but I know the right job is coming soon. I know it.
Now, did she look at you like you were crazy?
No, because she knew me.
Oh, she knew you. So
I've been in there so much, looking for a job, and we got to become friendly. And so she just laughed at me. And 3 days later, Sam called and asked me to come to work. If I'd have taken the job at Pep Boys, that would have been the end of it.
Right. They might have asked you, but you might have just said, yeah, I've got a job, I'm okay.
Because he would have asked for me, probably, because, so it's possible I could have still wound up working for him. But the way it was, I cut out the middleman. Because I could feel it. I just knew that the job was coming.
There was something.
And so that was the beginning of my time with Sam. And it was really funny because when I first started, he was very cautious about hiring me and making it plain that this was only for the summer. It was just a summer job, and that was that.
And don't get attached.
Yeah, don't get attached. And so, I started working when I was 10 on the job site with my dad,
Yeah.
And by the time I was 12, I was doing subflooring, all hand nailed, with my brother. And so I knew how to work. And so I went to work for Sam, and he saw right away that I was not like a normal kid. And in about 3 weeks, he started saying things like, well, Larry, in the fall when you start back to school, we can work around your schedule, And so that...
He didn't want to commit to you because he just wanted to make sure you were
okay.
he
was being cautious, and it was a big...
Yeah.
He'd never had an employee, so that was money going out,
Yeah.
Which meant... But what it did was, with me doing all the sanding, it allowed him to work more on fabricating pieces and that kind of stuff. And so we developed a really fine relationship right away. He just absorbed me into the family. And eventually I got married and we had 2 kids. We lived on the property because Sam purchased the property next door, which was an acre and a quarter, more lemon grove, but it had an old, really small 3-bedroom grove house on it, which he rented to us. Then I had 2 studios. I had a metal studio and a clay studio right there. So my world was very insular for a number of years. I worked woodworking with Sam during the day, and then after the kids were down for the evening, I'd be out either welding or doing clay work on the weekends.
It's really interesting to me that, made this turn from ceramics to woodworking. I mean, a kind of a sculpture, but from a malleable source to a less malleable source.
Yeah. When I look back on it, it's interesting. It's interesting to me that I was not very creative musically.
That is interesting.
I didn't write music. Things didn't come to me. It started to happen right near the end. Mm-hmm. My best friend was Bobby Mays, and he traveled with Wes Montgomery and what's his name, John Hendricks. He was a good bass player, and he had a long career. And the only song I ever wrote was called Cold Coffee. Mm-hmm. And he told me that he'd played that many, many times.
Oh, that's very cool.
The groups but that's not. I guess we could spill the beans, jump ahead.
Oh, he was.
To now.
Well, wait a minute. I want to ask you a question. So, I mean, at this point, I mean, I'm looking at you, just knowing this. I mean, and it's very clear to me that you're not just a clay artist. You're not just a woodworking artist. No. You're not just a musician, but you encompass creativity in its totality.
Yeah. And I was going to end the music part of this by saying I just finished a CD after 60 years.
You did?
Because one of my dear friends passed away, and I wound up with a Venom. It's called a Venom synthesizer.
Yeah.
It's a small monster of a music thing. And I've just put 4 pieces together that we recorded. It'll be coming out in the fall.
Wow.
I'm hoping to have a release party in December here. Yeah, for that, because it's not nothing. I mean, my friend has a recording studio.
No, it's not nothing.
And I called him up and said, I want to come over and play this stuff for you, and I want you to tell me if it's nothing, because I don't want to keep doing it if it's nothing. So he listened to it and set up a recording date, and so we did it. So it's just me on the synth.
So you played the synth.
Yeah.
It's just you?
Just me. And you know how they work. You have a ton of patches, and I go through 150 patches, and there's 3 that I like. It all sucks. I don't like it. So I take those 3, though, and then I start working with those and develop pieces out of them. You know, and so that's my backup.
I want to tell you, I see that my husband is watching right now, and I bet that right now he is very excited about this conversation because he's a musician, and he loves this kind of talk. So anyway.
Well. So I had, that's enough about the music. Anyway, that's happening now, and I'll probably work some more. I bought a Roland Juno workstation to really work with, but it's overwhelming.
I don't know what a Juno workstation is.
It's the same kind of thing, only expanded. You actually create.
So it's a synthesizer. Like
you can create your own patches.
On steroids?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was overwhelming for me. It's still, I haven't been able to become at ease with it, and I have a lot to learn with it. But this other one that I inherited was just right off, out of the blocks. Just because I have a kind of a funny natural feeling for the keyboard, which is kind of funny. That I studied piano when I was a little kid.
It doesn't surprise me that it didn't.
But it just comes.
Yeah.
That stuff just comes. It's like poetry. When I write, it just drops out of the universe all at once. I don't edit. It all comes at one stroke. And there's times when it all comes and then the last line doesn't come. And I go, well, there it is. You know, because I know better than to try and write.
So you just wait for it.
Write.
So does it come later sometimes?
Yeah. Like that last line might come a year later. Wow. And I'll remember.